bureaucracy's basement to your ears. This is the weekly meeting of the Queen City Improvement Bureau. Each week, the dedicated staff of the Bureau meet to file reports, make recommendations, and survive on water that drips from the boiler pipes in the back room as we sleep on a bed of dot matrix printer paper. Maybe one day we'll escape from the subterranean hell that is this basement, but until that day comes, this city is not going to improve itself. So, here we stay, improving things. This meeting is now in session.
Hello.
What's up, buddy? You sound down.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sound down.
Sound up.
I'll sound up then.
Excellent.
Is that better?
Kind
of. Or is that
of.
too much?
It's all the same to me.
Okay.
I've been eating the fungus off the walls again, and my standards are just...
Out the window?
Out the window.
That we don't have?
That we don't. We had them.
We had windows.
Once we were young, when we first moved down here.
Yeah.
But our standards were high.
Yeah. All right, shall we do attendance?
We shall. Okay. First attendee of the meeting, Hayes Niepold.
Who?
Hayes Niepold.
No, sorry.
Hayes Niepold. I don't have any information on, I think it's Mr. Niepold. I think I see the problem. I've mixed up the letters.
Oh, no.
Hold on.
How embarrassing for you.
Please don't mention it. Should be Paul Deschette.
That is me.
Okay. Second attendee, Nadia Growan.
No.
Nadia Growan?
No. Paul Deschette. We established that already.
Okay. Well, that might be me, but I'm not that. So...
Try rearranging the letters.
Oh, yes. Thank you. It should be Aidan Morgan.
That is you.
Okay, good.
Do we have quorum?
No.
Do we have guests?
Yes.
We have guests?
Can we?
Brilliant.
We can't induct them into the meeting, though, to form quorum.
No, that we'd have to send them to HR first.
That's right. There's
who wants to? You don't want to go to HR.
No. Although you could get out of the basement that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we have Alex Quon from the CBC and Larissa Kurz from the Leader Post for our election political panel.
Alarm sounds go off.
Yeah. If only we had music. I need a theme song.
Well, I've been doing that Terminator theme song thing.
Okay, let's hear it.
Da-da-da-da-da.
Excellent.
It's not excellent, but
it's adequate.
It's there.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for having us.
So you guys are like on the front lines of every council meeting, every committee meeting, and you're pumping out the news juice for the City of Regina, and for that we are grateful. You guys are improvement vectors. We don't even have throw out the rubric.
Right.
I declare.
Although I do have a point of order.
Oh, what's that?
Don't say news juice again.
I'll try not to.
I think we could get dinged by the station.
It is not forbidden. It is not on the list that I have taped over my desk.
Fair enough.
All right, guys. So, no, seriously, thank you very much for coming. This is fantastic. So yesterday, during the council meeting, I think it's like we actually hit the official kickoff of election season. They closed the window for you to submit your papers to be a council, school board, or mayoral candidate. So we now know the actual field. We have 52 candidates for council. Wow. I think it might be a record. I don't know. And 11 candidates for mayor officially now. So how are you feeling? Larissa?
I'm feeling like that's a lot of numbers to keep track of. That's a lot of people to get to know over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Alex?
That is an intimidating large list of people. I think especially for mayor. 11 candidates just for mayor.
Yeah.
I'm kind of scared to see what that ballot card looks like.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Maybe it'll be 2 ballot cards. We'll just extend it into extra.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be like one of those that just keeps unfolding.
Yeah.
Like a pamphlet.
Yeah.
So, The one thing did happen that people had been asking me about since, everybody like started mumbling about the election. Deaf Dancing Bob Pierce is back. Do you guys know Deaf Dancing Bob?
I feel like you can't live in Regina for very long without getting to know Dancing Bob.
Yeah.
Seeing him around.
Yeah, I feel like even if you don't know who it is, if someone describes to you a person who shows up at events and dances, then you're immediately familiar with what they're talking about.
Yeah. So he's going by the name Robert Pierce. I remember last election he was incensed that they wouldn't let him go by his real name, Deaf Dancing Bob. But
yeah, no, he's definitely registered this year as Bob Pierce.
Yeah.
Saw that.
So he's already capitulated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Given up.
So no, he'll compromise for politics.
Before we started, Larissa, you were talking about how important name recognition is. Do you think this will help Deaf Dancing Bob Pierce's chances this time around?
Well, I think you raise a good point. I mean, do people know Bob Pierce or do they know Dancing Bob? I know Dancing Bob.
Yeah. The minute you see his photo, though, on the city's website, you know who that man is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The thing I worry about is that last election, he was kind of a single-issue candidate. He didn't want people to live in fear of COVID, and he danced about it on YouTube.
Yeah.
So what will he be dancing about now is what I want to know.
It's a good question. I can't wait to ask him.
Yeah. So how has it been for you guys? So you guys are like real journalists. Doing real journalism. So are you talking to all the candidates? Are you doing interviews?
I have been. I started a little bit early because there's so many people. Mostly just the mayoral candidates I've been reaching out to and doing interviews with. I'm almost through the list. We had a few names pop up yesterday that I have to add to my to-dos, but it's a lot of names. I'll say it again in case you didn't know.
What about school board? There's a whole other list of people.
I haven't started in on school board yet.
I'm just trying to make it through the provincial election first.
You're covering that too?
Yeah, I'm covering both. So I'm going to do provincial and then immediately go into municipal. So I haven't started yet. I know there are some CBC reporters that are working their way through interviews with the mayoral candidates. But for now, I am taking a break for the moment, preserving myself so that I can actually, continue through this marathon double election cycle that I am now on. So yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Well, what are you finding from the candidates you've interviewed so far? Who stood out? And are these in-person interviews, or do you just do it over the phone?
I've been trying to do in-person interviews because I like to meet people and sit down and actually talk to them. I feel like you just get a better sense of a person face to face, right?
Yeah.
What am I hearing from them? I think everybody's got the same kind of thing on their mind right now, which is affordability is kind of a top priority for voters. Whether or not that sets them apart from each other, I think will be yet to be seen.
Yeah. Is there anything that's making them stand out? And can I ask who you've gotten through? Just to make you run through the list.
You're going to quiz me,
and
okay?
You have to do it in alphabetical order.
So I have, of course, attended to, Mayor Sandra Masters made her announcement way back in the spring that she plans to run for re-election. I've spoken with Lori Bresciani and Bill Pratt at their launch events as well.
Nice.
I also sat down and did interviews with Sean Sparvier.
Oh, nice.
Who's a first-timer jumping into city politics. Also Kevin Kardashian, another first-timer who's taking a swing at mayor. And Chad Baczynski.
Oh, wow.
Who's once again a first-timer. There's a lot of first-timers this time ago.
Yeah.
And I also talked to Brandon Aptesway, but he's since decided not to run.
We're very sad.
Changed his mind. But he was also somebody that I did an interview over. Actually, that one I think was over email, but I did kind of throw him some questions about why run for mayor.
And
we actually sang a song for Brandon last show.
We eulogized the end of his campaign.
Ah.
Yeah. How about you, Alex? What are you seeing as far as issues that are coming up?
I mean, I think affordability is going to be probably the major one. I also think that kind of folded into that is the conversation around the big kind of infrastructure projects that the city has on its plate or wants to build either now or in the future, and whether or not the city can afford to do that or whether or not that's a good idea to do that. I think that's going to be the most animating conversation or topic for this election cycle. I think you can already see the kind of the division between Mayor Sandra Masters and Councillor Lori Bresciani on that, and I think the other candidates are going to probably have a variety of different positions, but I think that's the thing that's going to animate a lot of people. Just from who I've been talking to, I think that's the key topic, the number one on the list for everybody.
Yeah, it seems to cut across. Like it's even so. There's like your slate of candidates from the RDLC, the Regina District Labour Council. They tend to swing a little bit to the left or a lot to the left, and that affordability concern seems to be across the board. Everybody has it. So
yeah, it's really a buzzword. Not just with mayor candidates, but also like campaigns for council as well. Everywhere. See it everywhere. Almost everybody has mention of city spending or city debt or affordability or taxes or something to that effect.
Yeah, even campaign literature that's out there already. Admittedly, not a whole lot that I've seen, but like every single one has either taxes, mill rate increase or decrease, or mill rate freezing. Like that's the main topic, I think, for every single council candidate and mayor candidate. So that is the thing that is going to dominate this election.
Yeah. So you mentioned Bresciani, Councillor Bresciani, who's now running for mayor. She's the Ward 4 councillor?
Ward 4, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought this was interesting because she's been working with Masters for 4 years. They've been aligned for much of that time on a lot of issues, and her Bresciani's like campaign literature came out swinging. It felt that it was very much about sort of like what was it? Refocus Regina. What do you guys? So what is this telling you guys about how things are feeling amongst city councilors these days?
I think there was definitely a sense of a shift earlier this summer in council chambers. You could kind of see maybe some of those lines forming, just in the way that council was talking about certain issues. And yeah, I think Bresciani's campaign really did kind of like start pointing at certain things that she'd like to maybe do differently moving forward than she'd maybe voted on in the past. I think it's going to run down to a question of, how does Lori intend to separate herself from the past 8 years on council in the mayor's chair in the future if she's elected there.
Yeah. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that is the thing that I've heard from people who are maybe interested in the fact that she's running. Just some people I've talked to in the community, you are a councillor who's been on council for 8 years. Like you said, seemed very in lockstep with the mayor on a number of issues during, I think, the maybe most of this council term. And now to try and put yourself as someone who wants to get things back on track, I think for a lot of people who might be, just kind of tuning in now around city council, especially with this election, I think what I've been hearing is a lot of confusion on, weren't they friends or had the same kind of views on things at city council, and so why run now and why run against someone who you seem to have had the same kind of values and views with?
What I find interesting about her campaign is that, she has that name recognition, much like Sandra Masters does. People will recognize her as Lori Bresciani from council, but she's not really able to run on her record. She kind of has to take a step back from that and point herself in a different direction, which feels like a challenge a little bit. Maybe, you know, you want to lean into the name recognition, but also you kind of don't want to because the history attached to it.
Yeah, and I think that actually in the last few council meetings, that's kind of become clearer on how she attempted to do that. Like, I think there was a lot of effort to try and talk a lot about being, you know, cost conscious and making sure people in Regina don't bear the cost of building projects. And I think, you know, I don't think she wasn't successful in doing that. Obviously, she didn't win over enough of her council colleagues to support her. Yeah. I mean, she was the one who was going to put an amendment on the floor to, you know, fix up the Lawson, build another aquatic center somewhere else, and you know, she didn't even end up putting it on the floor because she, I think, really quickly realized that there was no widespread support for that at all. So she didn't even put it on the floor, right? So, I mean, I think it's a way to try and differentiate herself from Masters, but I don't know if it was successful in any way, and at least in a way that she can take to, you know, to the doorstep when she's campaigning and say, look, I have these differences now.
Yeah, we've heard the phrase reconsideration motion, I think, more times inside Henry Baker Hall in the last, 3 weeks than the entire past 4 years.
I didn't even know these things existed until a couple of years ago with this council. So, yeah.
I think that's, I think that's the story of this council, really. I think for a lot of people who are tuning in or have tuned in, or, you know, there's frustration from people about how this council has operated and how they've maybe a lack of cooperation is probably a better phrase. They seem to vote on something, it may come back a few weeks later or months later, and then they have a completely different view on it. And again, you know, councillors are open to changing their views with whatever evidence is put in front of them. But I think a few weeks ago there was the comment from the chair of the Regina Public Library who said, you know, I think a lot of people are frustrated that there's 11 people around this semicircle getting paid $50,000 a year who can't seem to keep what they want to do straight and keep on trying to
and can't seem to make a decision on it at all about what they do about it.
Yeah. So we're on 91.3 FM CJTR, Regina Community Radio. We're the Queen City Improvement Bureau, and we're here with Larissa Kurz and Alex Quon talking City Council.
And they've got the news juice.
They do.
Oh, I said it.
Yeah, that's
you know, after asking
the
you
news
not
juice
to say
is
it.
on you, Amy.
Oh, I got news juice all over me now.
So,
sorry, I just said it several times. That's even worse.
So, okay, I wanted to ask you guys about something. So from where I'm sitting, now you guys are there in the chairs in City Council, like in Henry Baker Hall.
Mm-hmm. They're moderately comfortable,
Yeah.
Although, I mean, it could be more comfortable wherever you're sitting.
I'm in a vent. I'm in that vent. So it's like blowing air into the...
Okay, so our seats are probably definitely more comfortable.
Yeah, a little bougie.
I like to think of my space as a nest.
Sounds like you get air
nest.
Conditioning up there.
Yeah, oh yeah, all of it. If the room is hot, it's because I'm blocking it. So from where I'm sitting, this city council, and I hope I'm not exaggerating here or reading too much into it, it feels like they all hate each other now. And every time they go in camera, I would not be surprised if Jim Nickel, the city clerk, comes out and shouts, "There's been a murder!" And then they're all suspects, and then Aiden would have to come in a deer stalker.
Yes, and say, "The murderer is in this room," like that. Yeah,
nobody can leave.
That's right. And they all just leave. And I'm like, wait, what did I say?
It's like Regina's very own version of Clue.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Councillor Nelson in well, whatever.
So is it the same for you guys? What do you would hear the crosstalk, and do you have any hot goss is what I'm looking for.
I mean, I think having sat in that council chamber, I mean, I guess I don't know necessarily how much gets picked up on the microphones or the microphones if they're turned off, but sitting there, you can hear exchanges that are that make it very clear about how certain people feel about each other. And I don't think you even have to be like a serious council watcher to know that there are some people on council who dislike other councilors or other members of council a lot. I think that is a very easy thing to see if you just tune in for about 15 minutes.
Yeah, you can hear the chatter, totally. That's very much true. You can also see when councilors frown in a certain way, or roll their eyes, or put their face in their hands, or just generally have to get up and take a step away from their chair to take a breather. You get to see all of that when you're in the room. And it happens.
It happens frequently.
A lot, yeah.
I think, there's obviously a benefit to having it streamed. I think, for transparency's sake and just informing the public more, having it available is great. But being in that room, I think, gives you a lot better sense of the dynamics between councillors and the mayor than I think you can anywhere else.
Yeah. So I can remember, because I used to go to the meetings all the time, and I would sit in the gallery, and back in olden times, when Councillor Findura was in his first and second term, he would always have like a box.
1800s?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm old, man. He would bring out a box of Oreos on particularly long council meetings, and he would feed them to all of the media. And he'd be like, "Oh, come here, have some." And do you still get the Oreos?
I can say with confidence that Findura has never provided me with Oreos, which I'm now a little bit upset about.
The city clerk will occasionally bring us cookies, though.
Oh, that's
or
nice.
like just like little treats to, like, I don't know, keep us there, maybe. Convince us to stay.
Keep your blood sugar up.
Please don't go. We're not done yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I feel like there must be some kind of bubbly like dispenser back in behind all of the chairs, because if you listen really, really hard, you can hear them just cracking cans of bubbly.
Yeah, and the belching.
Like every single time. So that is their go-to snack right now, I think.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Okay.
They don't often bring those over to the media bench, though. We're on our own for drinks.
See, this is why I'm not leaving the vents ever again.
That's right.
Speaking of Findura, that was his last meeting.
That was.
How did that... it looked like he got rather choked up when he was saying his farewells.
He did. They're a little emotional there. He took the opportunity with some of his time on one of the items to, like, give a farewell speech, essentially, and just say that he's enjoyed his time and really felt like serving is a good thing for folks to be interested in and to want to do for the community, and kind of thanked everyone that he's ever crossed paths with in his time on council.
Yeah.
And he also said, if you're running for council and you get on council, you can't be afraid of making tough decisions, which I don't know if that was a shot across the bow to some of his fellow councilors.
Yeah.
Or just a very sincere warning.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah. He was a sweetheart, though, hey? Like, I'm going to miss having him on council. Like, I mean, I know that there are people who say that he may not have gotten a lot done in his 18 years? No, it wasn't that long. 115 years. Yeah. But he, I don't know. I ran into him once or twice. And I remember one of the first times I ran into him, he gave me a long talk about how, I don't take any of this personally. So, I get it that you go in there and you see something and you go home and you write about it and you say something that's not. I don't take any of this personally. I leave it all in the chambers. And I'm like, you didn't like something I wrote. But he was very nice about it.
Yeah, I did talk to him actually earlier this week about his decision not to run, and he does take his job very seriously as a representative of the people, and that comes through, when you ask him about council and his feelings on it, for sure.
Yeah. And it's funny, though, that he was like the longest serving councillor, and yet he somehow always seemed like a brand new to the job. And he was always like flummoxed by procedure and...
I mean, if you're not someone familiar with procedure, it can be very confusing. I mean, I try to follow it as much as possible to understand what's happening. But yeah, if you're not paying attention, sometimes it just will go by real quick. So I mean, Bob Hawkins is sitting next to him most of the time, so I guess you can just ask him what's happening. Because Bob Hopkins knows just every little piece of procedural.
He's very in tune with the procedural bylaw.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like he's like almost a secondary clerk on how much he will call out a procedural violation. So,
one thing that you do hear sometimes over the mics is like the clerk will be saying something or a councilor will be trying to say something, and Hawkins will be like off mic shouting about the way things should be working. Yeah, I think there's like a few too many lawyers in the room right now. Perhaps. I think Councillor Hawkins has said that also multiple times as well. Has had that same sentiment. So yeah, I have enjoyed the times when him and LeBlanc have sparred, and they've they pulled out they just put on their lawyer hats and like went at each other. Those were good moments. I'll miss those.
There's been a few of those with Stevens as well.
Yeah.
Hawkins and Stevens.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Both professors.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, we should go to innovative revenue tools.
Should we?
We should.
All right.
Do you have an innovative revenue tool?
I certainly do not.
Yeah, me neither. I was thinking like we could like sell tickets to the election.
Yes.
But
yes.
I don't know. Are you guys going to be in Henry Baker on election day?
That is my plan.
Yeah. We don't totally know for sure what the city's plan will be for media, but should we be allowed? That's where we'll be.
I mean, that's where I live every Wednesday, so...
It's just habit.
What would be, why break the street now?
Yeah. And we'll be outside scalping tickets to get in.
Yes, that would be great. And we may be actually doing some live coverage if we can swing that.
Yeah, that's the hope. So anyways, I'm going to switch to innovative revenue tools right now. And we're back from Innovative Revenue Tools.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Smoothly done, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question. Early on, you mentioned that there were a lot of first-timers for mayor. Care to speculate on why you think there may be so many as opposed to other elections?
It's a good question. I mean, we've got 11 candidates this year. Last time around, we had 9 candidates, which was also a pretty big ballot. A lot of first-time names, new to council, new to civic politics, really, entirely. And we're seeing the same again this year. And I won't speculate on why they've decided to run, but I will say that I think there's a lot of maybe discontent about the last 4 years. People feeling like we didn't quite get the mayor that they had wanted, and so they want to, take a swing at the job themselves, perhaps.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was in my mind as well.
Yeah.
Like after years of Fiacco, then Fougere, and we have a term of masters, and I think there's still some churn. I think some looking for something new that a lot of people seem to think they can provide.
I mean, either way, whatever happens in the mayoral race, I mean, it will look like a new council. That I think for sure we know now that there will be 6 councillors who are not coming back. So, whatever happens in the mayoral race, when council returns after next month's election, it is going to look very different. That dynamic is likely going to be very, very different. Whether that produces maybe some different results than what people felt happened this term, who can tell? But I think the fact that there is going to be so much turnover might change some things, or maybe change the direction of how council is going to operate. Personally, I hope that they decide to start city council meetings before 1 p.m. Because they need... We saw, I think you mentioned this before we started, but a lot of agenda items that were on this council's final meeting agenda didn't actually get dealt with. Yeah. They just ended, and now it will just go to the next council, which may or may not have some of those same councillors who brought those motions forward, so they might just be done. So I think there is just a, they need to. There's just a sense of them not having enough time to do everything they wanted, but I think that also is mostly, council's decision to do meetings at 1 p.m. kind of shot themselves in the foot on that one.
Yeah, there's definitely an appetite for new dynamic amongst the public, and it actually has come up in a few mayoral candidates' platforms. Like Bill Pratt kind of made note of it. Lori Bresciani also made note of it, but wanting to see a different temperature, different dynamic inside of like City Hall in chambers. They want new leadership to sort of bring something different to the way that council interacts with each other. They've cited it very specifically, which I think is perhaps coming from what they're hearing from voters as well.
Mm-hmm. I guess what I'm wondering is what you guys think. Like, was this just a problem of not having enough hours and trying to do too much? Or do you think there was like a breakdown in like chairing or interpersonal stuff? Like, what did you see?
I mean, I think it's hard to kind of like point at one single thing. I think a lot of the things that didn't get dealt with were like, motions from councillors that they wanted to have addressed, like the treat city managers or not city managers, city staff better. Councillors, that was brought up by Councillor Nelson. So I think a lot of things that like councillors wanted to get done maybe didn't get dealt with. Yeah. So maybe that's council's fault for wanting to try and do too much with too little time. But I also think they just didn't manage their time very well. And again, that might be because of how the rules that they kind of passed and accepted when they started council, just how they run meetings. But I also think it's, they spend hours debating one topic.
Only to produce like a walk on the floor amendment that requires a bunch of new information from administration, and then you have to go through the process of asking questions and talking that through, and then it gets defeated, or like it just seemed like there was a lot of little like inroads in every meeting on every item, even the straightforward seeming ones. Yeah. And it comes back to that like time management question.
I mean, they could speaking with Jim Nickel, they could have done special council meetings to maybe kind of have meetings to deal with things. Like we even saw one, in the last few weeks, but I don't think there was an appetite to do that, or maybe there just wasn't enough councillors who were interested in doing that. I think that a lot of those motions were first introduced in April. They didn't get dealt with at all, right? So I think, there's summer breaks and stuff like that, and there's some more important things that they had to deal with. But I think city council, if they want to do a lot of things, I think has to get serious about maybe how they run the meetings a little bit better, or just staying on track on things.
And this is a council that dealt with a lot of big topics, a lot of heavy things that they really like dug into very off the bat. Yeah. And those things take discussion. They take time. That's sort of how democracy works. It's a little bureaucratic, of course, but it is what it is some days.
It did seem they had like a backlog of infrastructure stuff they had to deal with. Some of the stuff that was on that agenda, though, that got kicked down the road, there was like big things like the Housing Supply and Revitalization Initiatives update, which had like some recommendations in it for council. The Flag and Proclamation Protocol, which I think was important at one time. Like, these were things that were in the news. The senior men's hockey ice time motion, like, again, that was like big news for city council for about a week. And then there was the Kanesatikawan, the integrating like treaty principles and Indigenous worldview into city operations. This is something that like Masters is running on, and they didn't even get to it in this meeting. Like, that's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah. Masters had like her explanation for some of these, that we heard in the post-council scrum. For the Indigenous policy view, the idea is I guess, to have the new city council vote on it, and so that they can approach it with like kind of a full, eyes open on what that means, and that way, they hopefully have buy-in from all of council as they go forward with it. Obviously the aquatic facility took up a lot of time, but I think there was also just maybe we can get these things sorted out, like the hockey thing, get this sorted out in the background, or have city staff deal with it rather than having city council kind of weigh in on it.
Yeah, sure. Well, okay, well, let's talk about that council meeting then.
Do we have time?
I don't know that we do. Yeah. Even if you like scale it down to like 1 minute for every hour, it's still like a big topic. The pool, how were people feeling after that, and what have you heard sort of like in the community about this pool project? Because they've been working on this for for years, and it came down to like practically the last vote of the last council meeting that they finally, committed to funding it.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard kind of mixed responses to it. The delegates who spoke on Wednesday were all very much in favor of like keeping on what we had planned, which was the full scope of the new indoor facility that was going to be, competitive grade as well as a recreational facility. Everybody was very adamant who spoke that we should do this. We've planned it. We've put a lot of work into it. Let's keep moving. But also on social media, there's quite a few people who are very upset about the price tag attached to it, because it's a very big price tag. $245 million is a lot of money, and we are at this moment planning to use a fairly significant portion of borrowing, so debt, property tax increases somewhere down the road. And of course, nobody likes property tax increases. Yeah. Those are never popular, ever. So I think it's a mixed bag. I think if you're somebody who uses the pool, you're probably quite excited to have a new facility, because it is going to be state-of-the-art and really quite nice. If you're somebody who only cares about how much property tax you're paying, maybe not the best news.
Yeah.
And I think, you heard that if you were following the discussion a little bit at council, city staff were laying it out pretty clearly, that this is in line with a bunch of policies that have been passed previously. We've done surveys. We've talked to the public. There's a widespread need to have a new indoor pool, especially with the loss in, I think they said max 5 years left in its lifespan. Yeah. And we as a city in Regina, I think that rank among the lowest in terms of pool availability of any kind of city in Canada. And I didn't know this until they mentioned, city staff brought this up, but the last time the City of Regina built an indoor pool was in 1990, right? Like that's a significant amount of time that you haven't built any pools, and Regina has grown in that time, and so you just don't have the amenities that other places offer. That's why I think that this topic, even revisiting the aquatic center, could be a big thing in this election, because I think there are enough people who are not maybe happy with that decision to approve the $245 million plan. I think that's why it's going to be a very animating thing for a lot of people when you go talk on doors.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a keystone, a very center point for a lot of the politicking to come in the next few weeks.
I'm surprised that this is going to be the pool election.
Another one.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah. Because we had like a stadium election a couple of elections ago, right? Where that was what, when they got their mandate, it was like, we can do the stadium now. And that now like we're going to be like fussing over the pool again, because I actually thought that this was going to be about the Housing Accelerator Fund. I thought we were going to have a lot of outrage about changes, like getting rid of, like they got rid of neighborhood plans at the council meeting before this. And there is until you have like an apartment building going up on the end of your block, people don't notice this, but I think there was starting to be this bubbling awareness that the city was changing and people weren't happy, and I thought they were going to be outraged, and I haven't seen it mentioned anywhere on any candidate website. So
I think we're maybe a few years out from the outrage about the Housing Accelerator Fund.
Yeah, because I think
it might need to percolate a little more.
Because I think the money is, I guess it's already in the city's control, but I think people won't see those the results of that kind of housing accelerator fund changes, until those buildings start going up.
Yeah, we're still talking about like policy level stuff and like zoning, and nobody pays attention to zoning except us in the room.
If you're not sitting at City Hall,
right?
You don't pay attention about zoning until
this room,
or in this room. You don't care about zoning until it affects you really directly, right?
Yeah, it's a very niche interest.
But I think you're right. I think housing accelerator, I think, will probably prove to be controversial. But I also don't think that there was that many counselors who, the federal government comes up with $35 million and says, look, we need you to change your development policies and make your city more, denser, which I think was already a goal for a lot of these counselors. And then saying, here's $35 million if you change your rules. A lot of counselors basically kind of signed on at that. I think once you've signed a deal where there's $35 million on the line, it's really hard for some of those counselors to say no to that, like toss away $35 million. But
nobody's going to say no to $35 million. I think
Nelson might.
Well, she tried. To be fair, I think she tried. She did vote against some of those motions.
She did.
But I don't think. Again, she's running again. Some other counselors will probably have different views on it. But at least for this past council, I think once that deal was signed and they knew that they had $35 million, I think that was a foregone conclusion. We had a series of hearings and a series of people who came and said, don't change the rules around density and zoning and development. But every time the end result was the same. This is getting passed because if we reject this in any way, that's $35 million out the window.
Densification, I think, is maybe have been a little bit of a hangnail for this council, where they've tried to poke at it, but they just can't quite solve it.
That's
right
a really
now.
good metaphor. Yeah.
But I think Councillor Nelson, with that $35 million, she probably thought this might benefit an unhoused person in some way, shape, or form. So she was like, no.
We all have to invite them into our own homes.
That's right. No comments from the guests. That's all right.
We're on 91.3 FM CJTR, Regina Community Radio. We're the Queen City Improvement Bureau, and we're talking with Alex Quon and Larissa Kurz. This is our political panel about the 2024 city election. So I wanted to ask you guys about the last 4 years, and looking back on this council, what was your big holy crap memory or thing you can't believe you forgot, or enormous thing that, when you're at a dinner party, you're like, oh no, seriously, you would not believe what I saw that happened at City Council?
I think the lawsuit over the funding and ending homelessness, I think
that feels like a million years ago, and it really wasn't.
It really wasn't. And it also, I had people from, reporters from other cities, DMing me or emailing and asking, what is happening? Because I think that is such a rare thing to happen. You don't have sitting city councilors, let alone one who is a lawyer, file lawsuits against the city that they're nominally a council of, right? I think that is something that will be very rare, and obviously was very rare. So I think that's the moment that, I think that had a large ripple effect. But I also think that made it really clear that one of the animating topics of this council was addressing homelessness or dealing with homelessness. I don't know if the people who, I don't think people see them as having dealt with that. A lot of people will want and have told me they wanted them to do more, but I think that was that moment where that kind of became crystal clear as one of the major topics for this council.
Absolutely. I feel like one of the things for me that's really gotten like swallowed up in the massive pile of stuff that's happened in the last few years was the ward boundary changes.
Oh yeah.
That happened. That happened.
Another lawsuit.
Yeah. There was another legal challenge against the ward boundary changes from people who just in the community who came together and said, we're concerned that the way that these are changing might be a little bit of gentrification. It might be, disenfranchising core city wards by divvying them up into bigger suburban wards, which ultimately a judge of the court did not agree with, and it didn't really go anywhere. But still, I think an important conversation to have brought up, and it kind of got lost a little in the mix.
Hayden, did you have anything that you remember fondly?
I think I actually said this during our live show. My favorite bit was when Councillor Nelson said she had a head injury, and that was that explained her behavior. That just sticks with me. I cannot forget that.
And there were that whole series of bringing in it's the ethics commissioner.
Right. There was a lot of ethics investigations.
Yeah, there was more. There was more this council than any other council before. That I think, which again I think was a perfect encapsulation of the disagreements and tension among councillors is by just having those complaints filed and then having to deal with them in an open council sitting.
Yeah. I also think that almost anything that Councillor Hawkins does, I just love. When he gets up to talk, I'm like, oh yeah, let's go. Although
he's contributed so many hours of tape to this show.
I know.
There's so many good monologues from a lot of people, but Hawkins,
I think Hawkins. If you didn't know he was a lawyer before, if he stood up and did his speeches,
if you just thought he was an old man, wandered in.
Yeah. I didn't say that.
Oh, I think the issue that's most captured my attention though is probably the cathedral safety zone.
Oh yeah,
because just watching that go back and forth, and watching councillors just do things, I'll just put it that way, and say things constantly about it was
do traffic engineering on the floor of council.
Yeah, it was kind of exhausting, but it was also really interesting to watch that particular sausage get made. Yeah. So that's my favorite of the last 4 years.
So I had a red flag.
Ooh.
And I was just I was thinking about two things that I remember being such a big deal. And now I'm like, whatever happened to the sustainability and energy framework? And whatever happened to the transformation office?
We bought some electric buses.
Yeah.
At one point in the last year.
That seems to be about all that's happened there. It gets mentioned in every report, in the text of the report, but not at council so much, except thanks to Shannon Zakidniak. But, the mayor also ran on this, I'm going to make the city run more efficiently and cut 15% of 15% savings, and created this whole transformation office. And I don't know if I've heard anything about it in over a year now. And again, kind of a signature thing. It
doesn't get a lot of airtime, the Transformation Office. The Audit and Finance Committee does. Yeah. They did do a little bit of kind of retooling of that to make it a little more effective. I think that's been producing some results.
That might actually, I think, be her more kind of it's boring for maybe just the regular citizen, but for the process of how city council works and city hall works, I think that Audit and Finance Committee might actually be one of her more kind of lasting legacies from this term, because I think there is a lot more scrutiny of how the books work and how finance in City Hall works. We also heard from Masters, who admitted one of her biggest surprises was that how sometimes slow things are to get change done or get things done. And she basically said, she expected, even for the pool, for things to go a lot faster than it did. She really didn't expect to have to maybe be wrapping that up on the last council meeting. Yeah. So,
and I think in her defense too, we're looking at these council agendas that are hundreds of pages long every week. Finance reports, finance changes, those kinds of items tend to be the ones that get bumped to the bottom and tabled ahead, and like they're just not as pressing as some of the other things that council has had to deal with. And so, yes, change is slow because we take forever to actually sit down and talk about some of those things.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got about 5 minutes here. So are you guys enjoying it still, Larissa?
Council?
Yeah, going to council meetings, the whole whirlwind.
I do enjoy it. It's it almost feels like you like get invested, like very like personally almost. Like you pay so much attention, you spend so much time there, you know so much about it. You kind of enjoy the fact that you know so much about it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I definitely am still enjoying it. I'm going to stick around.
Good.
I think.
Good.
Yeah.
Alex?
Yeah, I love doing it. I mean, I will probably be the first one to complain about how long some of those meetings are, and they do go very, very long, but there's an importance of covering city council and doing it well and actually informing people about it, because I think it's an underappreciated fact that, you know, a lot of the stuff on your day-to-day life will be decided at city council, not necessarily on, you know, at the Saskatchewan legislature or the federal kind of government level. You know, I think I'm even thinking about the green bin rollout and how that reception went, right? Like that, you know, people didn't realize their garbage was going to get, like the day their garbage was getting picked up was going to get changed until that system rolled out. And then there was a lot of feedback around that, right? And so informing people about it, trying to inform people as best we can about those topics, it's what makes me love doing the job and love going down to city council and covering it.
Yeah, there's a certain kind of like apathy amongst the regular resident about civic government and what it does and how it affects them. But yeah, it comes with like kind of a sense of responsibility as a reporter to make sure that everybody understands and knows what's going to affect them in their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I especially, like, I don't think we can't cover every single topic that gets voted on, but I think there is those big subjects that are coming up that we try to get people informed on, because it is important, and once the votes happen, you know, it's almost a little too late for people to try and change it at that point. So trying to get people informed about things, it's important.
Yeah, we're here to read the report, so you don't have to.
Yeah.
The 800 pages of reports that happen to be for one council meeting, we're the ones who dig through it to do that. So
my Friday night plans every week.
Oh, really? How do your families and friends feel? Like, do you talk to them about what you see? Like, how does that go over?
Yeah, I mean, like, so having grown up here, born and raised in Regina, I don't think growing up, I talked to my parents about city hall stuff, but now, you know, maybe this is just me getting older and being more invested in it, but yeah, they're interested. They talk to me. Nice. They ask questions about what's happening, and they seem genuinely interested in what's happening down at City Hall, and my friends are too. That I'm their go-to person to find out what's happening. So I think, you know, it's kind of nice to have people interested in what I'm working on. So
cool.
I get a lot of questions from like social circle that, you know, what's going on at City Hall, and they all turn to me because I'm probably the only person who knows. My parents not so much. They don't live in Regina, and so my mom is a very staunch supporter of my career. She reads everything I write, but she will tell me that she thinks council stories are boring, which is fair. She doesn't live here. It doesn't affect her property tax, so she's not too worried about it. But, you know, you win some. You can't win them all.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, we should probably wrap things up here.
Should I move to adjourn?
Well, thanks, guys, for coming.
Yes.
That was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome anytime. Yeah. And, I guess, how many days is it now? November 13th is the election, and people can, like, go on regina.ca, go to the elections page where you can find your where your voting space is. Make sure that you're, like, you don't really have to register to vote. You can just show up.
Yeah.
You can. Yeah, you can register at the polls on election day.
Yeah.
But
or you can do it online beforehand if you want.
But yeah, make sure to go check out that website. They have all the candidates listed for each ward. You can find out what ward you're living in if you don't know, because the boundaries have changed. So
they are changing.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And where can you two be found?
You can find me on Twitter, X, at Alexander Quon. I spend too much time online, so that's probably the best place to reach me.
Okay.
I am also on Twitter, Larissa G. Kurz, although I spend less time online than Alex.
That's probably a healthy decision.
Yeah. And look for them on the CBC and the Leader Post, respectively.
That's right.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
All right.
To adjourn.
I will second that motion.
All right, motion passed. You've been listening to the Queen City Improvement Bureau on 91.3 FM CJTR.ca, Regina Community Radio. Our hosts are Paul Deschen and Aid Martin, music by Guidewire, a.k.a. Ryan Hill. Our guests tonight are Alex Quon and Larissa Kurz. Thank you very much again. We are broadcast Thursday evenings right now, 7 to 8 p.m. Rebroadcast Monday afternoons, 3 to 4 p.m. So you can catch us again while you're driving home. What else? You can find us on Twitter. Also, Paul's on Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky. We're all there. That's all. Keep on improving, Regina.